There is no word for it in Hebrew. Why? Because every noun is either he or she. Today I'll be talking all about gender on Hebrew Help with Sapir. Shalom and welcome back to Hebrew Help with Sapir, coming to you from Chair 1 at beautiful Bryan Head Resort in Utah. Today I'm going to talk all about gender in Hebrew, and I can't believe I have to say this, but yes, you have to learn it. The vast majority of nouns in Hebrew, and I mean vast, are either masculine or feminine. I think in my 50 years of learning Hebrew, I've heard of 2 nouns that can go both ways. And even with those, you have to choose a gender for your sentence and stick with it. So if you are not familiar with gendered nouns, as most English speakers are not, then I understand that this is a difficult concept. In English, we only have a handful of gendered nouns, and they're all people or animals, such as mom and dad, boy and girl, man and woman, etc. There are still a handful of professions that are gendered, and even those are going away, such as actor and actress, steward and stewardess, waiter and waitress. We often now refer to all actors as actor, whether they're male or female. We call people servers or flight attendants instead of steward or stewardess or waiter or waitress. So in English, gender always shows up in the pronouns in the singular. So we'll have he for masculine, she for feminine, and it for inanimate objects. In Hebrew, every single noun is either masculine or feminine. And so this will also affect the adjectives that modify them, the verbs that go with them, and also the pronouns that go with them. So if I want to say something like, my air conditioner doesn't work, it is broken. In Hebrew, the word for air conditioner is masculine. So I can't say it is broken because there is no it. I would have to say he is broken. And then also the word for work is going to be masculine to fit the air conditioner. And also broken is going to be masculine also to match the masculine air conditioner. But if I want to say, I can't sleep on my bed because it's broken, then I have to use she because bed is feminine. And then I also have to use the feminine word for broken. So how do we know if a noun is masculine or feminine? Well, only when it comes to people or animals that we can tell their gender does it actually have anything to do with our physical attributes. And the rest are pretty random, but there are a couple of rules. All right, so the first rule is that anything that has to do with people or animals generally does follow the gender. So we do have man and woman, dad and mom, but also words like student will have a different form for a male student versus a female student. A teacher will have a different form for a male teacher or a female teacher. Of course, in this day and age, a person's gender isn't always so black and white. In English, we often use they to talk about a singular person who is maybe non-binary or gender fluid. This is much more complicated in Hebrew because even the words for they are gendered. And with all the adjectives and verbs matching the gender of the noun in question, there's really no escaping it. So this is a really difficult situation in Hebrew. So the second rule is that for inanimate objects, because it's so random, we basically just look at the end of the word. if it ends with a kamatz hey, sounding like ah, or if it ends with a taf, it is 99% of the time feminine. Notice that I have an X here to signify that any letter can be here, but it must have a kamatz under it to follow this rule. Now be careful. There are some words that end with a patach under the hey itself, and those words are usually masculine. And there are all kinds of words that end with an ayin with a furtive patach, so they sound like they end with an ah sound. And those are usually masculine too. So it's not just the ah at the end. Spelling is important. And the same goes for some verb forms or some words that have a pronominal ending, sometimes also end with an ah sound. So like past tense verbs, the past tense of the singular you masculine always ends with a ta sound. And also the singular you masculine pronominal ending is cha. So those actually, when you see them written, they end with either a taf or with a chaf sofit. But when you hear them, they end with an ah sound. So it's likely to make you think, oh, is this a feminine word? And so you have to be careful about that. And also numbers in the ones place match the gender of the nouns that they are applying to. A weird thing is that it's the masculine numbers that end with an ah sound for the most part, and the feminine numbers end with something else. So that can be a little confusing. But of course, that's numbers, not nouns. So again, it doesn't really break any rule. The next rule is that cities and countries are 99.9% of the time feminine. And this is because the word for city and the word for country are both feminine nouns. And so all of the names of the cities and the countries are also feminine. The one exception that I have found is Sfarad, which means Spain. And I've seen in some dictionaries it says they say it's masculine. In some they say it can go either way. The academia is not taking a stance either way, so it's hard to know. But just don't be surprised if you see Sfarad using masculine adjectives or masculine verbs. And lastly, almost all body parts that come in pairs or use the dual form are feminine. And so this is eyes, ears, legs, hands, shoulders, all of those words. Even teeth, even though we have more than 2 teeth, the plural of teeth is shinaim, and so teeth is also feminine. Most people would say that this applies to 100% of the body parts that have a dual. But I did find one word, achoraim, which means buttocks. We have 2 of them. It has a dual plural, and so it should be feminine. But 100% of my dictionaries say that it is masculine. All right, so I looked at over 1,300 words that these rules would apply to. So they either end in a kamatz hey or a taf, or they're a city, or they are a body part with a dual. And out of the 1,300, I found 7 exceptions to the rule. That's 7 words that were actually masculine. And that's only about 0.5%. So these rules are pretty reliable. I already mentioned Sfarad and Achoraim. There are 2 words, matzit and sherut, that are also masculine. And that's because their root, their shoresh, ends with a taf. But the main pattern of the word, the template, is a masculine template. And then we have the word ot, which actually is masculine and feminine. So the word originally meant a sign or a symbol, and in that context, it's a masculine word. But it has now expanded to mean a letter of the alphabet. And whenever we talk about it being a letter, it is a feminine word. And of course, when we look at it, that's what we think it should be because it ends with a tough. And we have 2 words on the list, tut meaning berry and laila meaning night, that don't follow the regular pattern. They're both masculine, and I have not found any explanation for it. Laila is actually pretty easy to remember because we always say Laila Tov, and Tov is the masculine form of the word good. So when we say good night, we say Laila Tov. We don't say Laila Tova. And that tells us that Laila is masculine because adjectives don't lie. So we've got about 4 rules and 7 exceptions. This should be easy to remember, right? Wrong. The flip side of this rule, the ones that don't have these endings or aren't cities, aren't pairs on the body, there are irregulars on this side too. I looked at about 2,000 nouns that should be masculine. And of those, I found about 50 that are feminine, which is about 2.5%. So percentage-wise, the number of nouns that actually look masculine but actually are feminine is way higher than the number of nouns that look feminine but actually are masculine. But still, both percentages are quite low. A bigger problem is when we come across a word in the plural form. In general, feminine words in the plural have an ending of ot, which is spelled with a vav and a taf. And masculine words get the plural ending im, with a yud and a mem sofit. But there are a lot of feminine words that have the plural im ending, and a lot of masculine words that have the plural ot ending. I have not calculated the percentage, but most of my teachers recommend that when you come across a word with an ending and you're trying to figure out is this word masculine or feminine, work on trying to figure out if you know the singular form, and that is a much better indicator. Or, of course, you can always just look in the dictionary or look at pealim.com, or there's all kinds of sites that will tell you if it's masculine or feminine. Another way to tell is if there are any adjectives or verbs going with this noun. So if the noun has adjectives that are in any way applying back to that noun, then you look at that adjective and look at the ending there. Adjectives do not lie, and verbs don't lie either, but the noun would have to be the subject of the verb for you to know whether knowing the gender of the verb tells you the gender of the noun. So if you see an adjective or a present tense verb that ends with a with a kamatz he, or an et, or an ot, then you know that the noun that goes with it is feminine. Otherwise, it's masculine. And past tense and future tense verbs also have indicators of gender, except in the first person, as I mentioned before. But usually when there's a noun going with a verb, it's usually third person. So in the past tense, a third person singular is going to have a kamatz he ending. In the plural, you can't tell the difference. And in the future, the singular masculine third person is going to have a yud prefix, and the feminine is going to have a taf prefix. And again, the plural, you can't tell the difference between the masculine and the feminine. So that's it for today. I think I've covered just about everything you need to know about gender. If you have any questions or feedback, leave it in the comments. And also, if you have some grammar point that has you flummoxed, leave it in the comments and I will do a video about it. Hit like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more. Lehitraot bapaa mapaa, and thanks for putting up with me on the slopes. Is it tough putting up with me?
Yeah, sometimes it is.